Alrighty, we want to write the equation for this function. Now, first thing I kind of want to do here is to see what it looks like. So what you might want to first do is realize and kind of highlight one period of it. That kind of can help to see one period of the function. All right, and with that, hopefully you notice it starts here, it ends here. All right, let me make those red a bit better, mark them as red. Then, what I also want you to notice is halfway between here and here that's an important point. How far down do you go till you hit? You hit right there. I want to mark that spot. Halfway between here and here, I want to go up and I want to mark that spot. It's going to be important here. For writing the function, those two dots, which are halfway between and up or down, are very important for sketching. Now, in order to get the equation, we're going to think that this is a tangent or cotangent. But before we even do that, let's find our midline, amplitude, period kind of stuff. So here we go. My midline. My midline is going to be, well, just y equals 0. All right. My, it's not my amplitude here. It's my vertical stretch. What is my vertical stretch here? Well, that's a little hard, but look carefully. This right here is your vertical stretch, that little dot. So how far from the midline are those dots? And that's your vertical stretch. And hopefully you notice it's a half. And do you understand it's a half down? Because it's dropping. So my vertical stretch is actually negative 1/2. Lastly, my period. Well, my period is just simply the interval size, which it ends at pi over 2. So my period is just going to be pi over 2. Now, to make the function, I need b, not the period. So how do we find b? What we do is we take pi and divide by the period. We take pi and divide by the period, which that would give us pi over 1 times 2 over pi. The pi's disappear, leaving you 2. So my b value is 2. Now you see in a sec why 2 is important. Okay, so my function is y equals. My vertical stretch is first, it's negative 1/2. Normally it's your amplitude. The next thing is, wait, is this a tangent or cotangent? Well, which one starts at the midline, ends at the midline with an asymptote down the middle? It's tangent. So I know it's a tangent. And by the way, the negative is because it's dropping. A normal tangent goes up first. Okay. Now, what is going to be next to theta? Well, what goes next to theta? Is that the b or the midline? Isn't the b? So with that b value, go right there. And if you want to put plus 0 for your midline, you can, but you don't have to. So it's a tangent graph with a b value of 2, a vertical stretch right there, and a midline of 0. So in order to figure out the equation for this one, let's first highlight one period. So if I start right here, that is half the period. So the rest of the period goes back to right there. So hopefully you see I started there and I'm ending there. That is one period, which that also helps me see my midline. Can you see a midline here? So we start here, we end here, asymptote down the middle, and a midline right there. That'll help us. Now let's also mark our a value. Halfway between these, how far up did I go? Hopefully you can tell you went up to right there, which is 2 up. Halfway between these, how far down did you go? Hopefully you can see You went 2 down. So, hopefully you can see right here, that's your period. That's going to be your A value, and this line right there is your midline. So, my midline is y equals -1. My vertical stretch, which was my amplitude, is a +2 because halfway between I went up 2. Halfway between I went down 2. And lastly, my period, well, how far from green dot to green dot? That's pi. So my period is pi. Now we have to find b in order to make the equation. We can't just use pi. We can't just use the period. So to find b, I'm going to go pi divided by the period. Oh, interesting. Which is 1. So b is 1. So if I want to write the function, it's y equals, your vertical stretch goes first, which is 2. You should know whenever there's an asymptote in the middle, it's a tangent. What goes next to the x right here is your b value, which is 1. Which, do I have to put a 1 there? No, but you can. That makes you happy, whatever. And your midline goes at the end, which is -1. That would be the equation of that function. Now, for this, hopefully you notice it's a cotangent because you have an asymptote and an asymptote. Now, the midline's hard to find on a cotangent because the midline always hits exactly between them. So isn't this line exactly between? So wouldn't it hit right there? So what that means is this dot right here means that's where your midline is. That's a little tough. That this is right in between these, smack between the two asymptotes. Wherever it hits, that is where your midline is. And that's kind of tricky. So my midline is y equals 0. All right. Now, my vertical shift, well, what I have to do is halfway between these, I got to go up and up and up until I hit my graph, which is right there. So it's right there. Halfway between these, I'm going to go down, 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 down until I hit it, which is right there. So hopefully you know it's a 3. Now, doesn't cotangent normally go downward? So it's a +3 because the normal is down. Lastly, my period. Well, my period is the distance from this to my next asymptote. What wasn't that, pi over 2? The period is pretty simple, pi over 2. But from my period, I now have to calculate my b value. So b is going to be pi divided by pi over 2, which would be pi over 1 times 2 over pi, which those disappear, so b equals 2. All right, so let's write the function now. Y equals, I know it's a cotangent, but do I have an a value? Yes, my a value is my vertical stretch. So my a value is going to be 3. Cotangent. Theta or x, it's your call. The b goes in front of the theta. And my midline is 0, so I don't have to put a +0 at the end. I'm good. I'm just going to leave it without putting +0, but you could if you wanted to. So be aware, these are a little bit harder. One thing I didn't do on this, maybe I should have marked it, this could help you, is it might have helped if I did that right there. Does that help some of you? See it? You have this dot still, this one, and this one. Sorry I didn't mark that, but can that help you see the one period better if I highlight that one period? Sometimes it helps to highlight the period you're focusing in on. Good luck.